Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show, the Hot as Fuck podcast. I am here with an incredible guest this morning, today. This here is Shannon Brome-Ward. She is a certified money mindset coach, financial educator, and life coach who made $1 million while working her 9 to 5. You guys, we are going to dive in and share all the things today so you guys can also learn to make magic with your money. So, Shannon, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Samantha. I love talking to you. So this is great that we're going to have this opportunity to talk today. Thank you for having me on.
You are so welcome. And actually, I'm so excited for this too because we've been friends now for over a year and known each other for years before that. And I've been talking to a lot of women and ladies lately, and even in the last 6 months, not even just with this year, but we're just like, there's this like aura of like fucking women energy where we're taking our power back, we're stepping into the light. And that includes making some fucking money for ourselves and our families, not just the old way of doing things. So I'm really excited in both ways that we're like women representing here and we're talking about money today.
Well, I mean, you're touching on the things that are near and dear to my heart. I love talking about money. I have no qualms about it. I want people to understand that it isn't as difficult to make it as they think it is, and that it doesn't always require working harder. And I
Mm.
love the fact that women are feeling empowered, deciding that they want to make money, have money, enjoy their money, you know what I mean? And not feel guilty about spending it. I love all of that, especially because it hasn't been that long that women were able to do that themselves, right? Like to get their own credit cards, to get a loan without a man signing, a husband, a father, an uncle, a brother. Like it hasn't been that long, probably less than 50 years now, because I think it was like in the mid 70s.
Yep.
So the fact that, okay, yes, we are behind in that sense because we weren't given the opportunity and couldn't take the opportunity to have our own money and our own resources and to build wealth on our own. I think that now that women are like, yeah, I want to do this, then fucking let's go. Let's go.
Yes, I'm so glad you even said that too, because I've had those similar thoughts, and especially if things start to go like, oh God, I'm feeling, you have the shit show thoughts, or you start to feel down about anything, and then I'm like, hold on a second here. What a time in this life for a woman to be able to do the things that our ancestors, that our grandmas or great grandmas did not even have an. Oof, I guess I'm a little emotional. Did not even have an opportunity. And like here we are. It's like let's go. Exactly. It's like, let's go because we have the opportunity. So let's take it. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially because money gives women the power to make different decisions, right?
mm, mm,
Sometimes it's the power to step away and do their own thing, to take care of their kids on their own, to step into a better situation or to step out of a bad one. It really gives them that freedom to make decisions that are best for them. And
mm,
so, not talking about it, not looking at it, not understanding how it works is so detrimental to your lifestyle, to your life, to your freedom, to the lives of your children. That because we need it, everybody needs it, but because we need to use it, you've got to take some time to understand how it works.
mm. Ooh, okay. I know I said I wanted to even start like we usually start with, right? I do want to tell your story. And just right here with what you just said, when you're working with clients or just in general, if you want to like, we're talking about, okay, ladies, like, let's listen up. What's like maybe the steps or what is someone like if someone's like, okay, I'm ready, I hear you, I want to start taking control of my money and my finances. What does that kind of outline look like? Is there like these are kind of the 5 things or the 3 things you want to start with, and let's get a hold of this, and then we go from there? Can you kind of share something like that?
Sure. Absolutely. So they're the practical things, the technical things that we have to take care of. And then there are the emotional, psychological things that we have to address as well. And both of them play a role. And I would even say that the emotional, behavioral, psychological pieces play a greater role than the technical pieces. And but what we see are all of the technical things because men dominate the industry. So
Mhm.
they're just like, boom, do this, do that, do this, do that. But we don't address the psychological or behavioral effects that actually impact whether or not you can do those technical things. So I think it's so important to address both of them. So the technical ones seem pretty straightforward, but if you've not been able to do them, that's where we have to draw in the behavioral aspects.
Mhm.
So, first and foremost, we got to get you out of debt. And I want to preface this by saying we don't need to do these things um, chronologically. You can do all of the things that I'm going to list simultaneously at the same time. I don't want you to think that you have to do one, then you can move on to the other, and then you can move on to the other. That wastes time. And
Mhm.
that is what we don't have. Okay. We don't have time to waste. And when, in the grand scheme of things, when we're thinking about investing, it's time in the market, not timing the market. So the
Mm.
longer you have in the market, the better the possibility and the probability for your money to grow. So that's why I don't want you to think, okay, I've got to make sure, and this is one of the things that women do, I've got to pay off all my debt first before I do anything.
Oh my God. I just want to say real quick, I am so glad you're saying this. I mean, I know this from you, but like I'm so glad, shout it from the rooftops, like because I think most of us have been brainwashed by the Dave Ramsey type way or thing where other people out there saying that very masculine way also and like a one way to do this versus you're like, actually, no, that's the wrong way. We can do this. I just love that simultaneously. And that actually doesn't waste time. So, mic drop right there. Okay, keep going.
So yes, I agree that having high interest debt when you're paying, credit card debt at 28%, 30%, that is debilitating. That will rob you of your future, your money. It is really difficult to pay that off. And so, yes, we want to make sure that you are paying that debt down. But what people tend to do is they spend all their time trying to pay it off and they never get to the point of investing and they lose years. So,
Mm,
what I help folks do is create this budgeting framework that enables them to pay off their debt. And we have a deadline. Like, it is going to get paid off. That's the other thing. Folks are like, okay, I'm working towards paying off my debt, but they're not making any progress. And
mm,
it feels so frustrating. And so, no, we set up a realistic timeline for you to pay off your debt so that you know there's going to be an end to this torture of throwing your money at the Visa or the Amex or the whatever. And so we make sure that we have a deadline for you to pay it off.
mm,
At the same time, we are investing because you need to understand that saving your money in a bank is not going to enable you to build wealth. Yes, you should have some money in the bank, your emergency fund, in case the car breaks or something happens and you need to grab some money really quickly. We're going to have some money set aside there. It's the life happens fund, the emergency fund, the shit happens fund. You can call it whatever you want. But it's not a when, it's not an if, it's a when things go awry, you can grab some money. But that's not where you're putting your life savings. That's not where you're building wealth. Where you're building wealth is in investing. And when you're looking at your brick and mortar bank that's making 0.1% interest, which is nothing, or your high yield savings account, even that has 4 to 5% interest sometimes, that's great. But the real money is in the stock exchange. So the real money is in the New York Stock Exchange. And that's where really you start building money. And that's why I always want women, even when you're paying off debt and we've allocated some money towards that, we're going to take some money and we're going to start investing. And I'll get into my story about how I started with $25 a month, right? So and that was the minimum you could put in at that time. Now you can start with $1. And I know everybody has $1. right? Everybody has a dollar, so I don't want any excuses.
My
We can
son found $5 in his little shorts pocket this morning. So, I mean, if my 9-year-old.
Thank you very much. It's like they used to talk about like getting it out of the couch cushions. Like there's money there. You start with what you have because you want to start building that muscle. You
Mhm,
want to become financially literate. You want to understand how the market works, right?
mhm,
And so you can start with a dollar. Nobody's saying, like back in the day, most brokerage firms were like, okay, we'll only talk to you if you have $250,000. It's like, well, if I have $250,000, I would already know how to do this. So the investing is key. And we want to make it simple. I don't
mhm,
want you to be bogged down by, all of the terms and all of the verbiage that's used in the financial industry that is intentional, that's deliberate. It is to scare you. It is to make you feel as though you need somebody to do this for you. You can learn to do this by yourself. And then we set it and we forget it.
mm,
Just keep it simple.
mm,
The third thing, so the first thing is, the budgeting framework so that we can know where our money's going and pay off our debt and be really intentional, aware about what we're doing with our money. The second thing is to set it and forget it. So we simplify the investing. And the third thing is this is a key that most folks, especially, middle class folks, middle earners, don't realize, or they may have heard of it recently, but millionaires have multiple paychecks.
mm,
They
mm,
get their money from multiple sources, not
mhm,
just one. And especially in this economic climate, one source of income is incredibly risky. So for
mm,
all of you who are afraid to, invest in the market because that's risky, if you have one person paying you, one person that you're relying upon, that's riskier, to be quite honest, because one is too close to none. Someone could be sitting in a room across the hall making a decision about your job right now.
yep, yep,
So, what I encourage everybody to do is to create additional sources of income.
mm,
So when I'm working with my clients, we try to create at a minimum two others. Now, one of the sneaky links is, well, if you're investing, you're already creating another one,
mhm, yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
automatically making money for you. That's creating another source of income. You may not draw upon it right now, but it is working for you in the background. It's working for you while you're sleeping. It's working for you when you go to work, right? So it's always doing the work for you. So it doesn't require you to work harder, actually. It just requires you to understand how money works.
true,
Then I encourage folks to create another source of income. And there are many reasons for this. Um, One is the obvious. If something were to happen to your primary source of income, well, you want something else there that could, boost you up until you've replaced your primary source of income. So something that can still pay the mortgage or the rent, the utilities, the food, your transportation, like the main things that you need, the bare bones, you want that other source of income to create that while you are finding another primary source of income, right? So that is one of the main reasons. Secondly, taxes. And this is something people don't think about. But creating this other source of income enables you to optimize your taxes. So for example, for the people who are like I was for many years, a W-2 earner, I had an employer, I went to work, if I had another business, then of my own business, the things that I was paying for, I could use as tax deductions. So I paid for my own cell phone, but if it's under the business, that's a tax deduction. I paid for my own internet, but if it's under the business, that's a tax deduction. A part of my mortgage, because it was my office, would be a tax deduction. So, legally, these are things that people don't realize. But even a side hustle creates tax incentives for you for things that you're already paying for anyway. So why not get a tax deduction for them? Right?
this is
It's
so juicy right here, Shannon. Keep it coming. This is like juicy. Yes.
Yeah. So these are the things that I'm like, knowing how money works really
Mm,
keeps more money in your pocket. And so
mm.
then when you have this additional source of income and now you have a tax deduction, you have more money in your pocket. Well, guess what? Now you have more money to funnel into your investments. Oh, now you have more money to pay off your debt. Oh, now you have more money to boost up that additional source of income. So they all work together in tandem.
Ugh.
But it starts with you saying, okay, it's time for me to start looking at my money. I can't keep my head in the sand. I can't be afraid to look at this. I've got to take control.
Mm. I love that. I have so many ways I want to go. I'm with that. I like also though, I feel like the way you just laid this out for us was super comprehensible. Like comprehensible? Comprehensive. Like
Comprehensive?
comprehensive. We might be making a new word right now. It was super clear on like and it did all feel full circle. Like they all feed, like it all feeds into this beautiful, what you said. If you know how money works, and like here's the framework of how money works for us, and I just even it like made me think of this like an analogy of like okay with like health and weight loss and or in that where it's like so many people are on the treadmill or going to the gym or working out and kind of trying this diet, but then they stop and they start and then they try this diet and they stop and they start and then they're like, oh, and the behavioral emotional. I don't know. It never works for me. It just never works for me. I just can't do it. And it's like for someone like myself, when I'm like, I know how exercise and nutrition, I know how fueling and workouts and training works. So I get fucking results and I get them fast like that.
Oh
Like,
my,
yeah. So it's this that just came to my head when you said that because I'm like, yeah, same thing. Like I have goosebumps right now. Like if you know how money works and you've got these frameworks, and it's very, what I say too with my stuff is like it's potent and simple. And I think what you just shared with us felt the same way. It was very fucking potent, the things that we're doing and that you do with your clients. And it's simple. We're not like it's not this whole big massive hard challenging thing that we've made it out to be, but it can be potent and simple, and then guess what? Ooh, like you start getting that momentum and it works.
100%. Well, think about why folks come to work with you. They want speed. They want to do this thing,
Yeah.
right? They're tired of like fucking around. They want this thing to happen quickly and they want ease. They want it to be easy, just like you said, simple. Like they want speed and ease, right? And so, why, when I see folks struggling for years with their money, right?
Yeah.
And it's like they hear these few things, they get into alignment with just these simple steps, and then
Mm.
like, wait a second. Now, what comes from that is a lot of the times they're like, "Oh, I'm so upset that," I was like, "We've got to let that go. We've got to move on," right? Because the first thing they said, "I've wasted too much time. I'm wasting too much time." Is like, you're not. Let's just start from here. And now that you know better, you'll do better. And that's it. It's so simple.
Mm. Okay. Love that. Y'all like, and I just love that too because it's like, that's kind of been a theme too, is I'm going to turn 40 next month and I'm so freaking excited. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's like I'm just getting started. Like I'm like I literally feel like I have a whole new life that if I didn't, I had accomplished nothing, which is not true. But like I'm, if I'm not where I want to, I feel like, oh my God, I'm just getting started though. And I feel like so many women especially, but a lot of people and men and women like at this age, they're like, well, I mean, I don't know. My hands are raised. There's nothing else. I'm trapped. I'm stuck. There's no way I could. And it's like what you just said. It's like, hold on. We're just going to cut that cord. Like, you're here now, and let's do something about it now. And I think just that alone is so powerful.
100%. First, happy birthday in advance. I love that you're turning 40. That's very exciting. And I want to say too, because a lot of people think they're too old, they're behind, they haven't done enough. And I want to speak to this one woman who she started at 53,
Mm.
and she particularly went into real estate investing. And she started with, she said at 53, her and her husband had like 300,000 in their retirement accounts. For some, that's a lot. For some, that's a little. But for her, she thought that's not going to be enough for us to retire on, when we're like 65. So they decided to really start looking at their money and really, they worked 9 to 5 jobs, both of them. No inheritances, nothing, right? Within 10 years, they 10x their income. They have almost $4 million net worth. I want people to understand that 10 to 15 years for most folks is all it takes for them to reach their particular financial freedom, financial independence number. 10 to 15 years. Okay. So for some folks, if you're 50, okay, that could be 60, 65. But at 65, that doesn't mean you get to retire. At 65, if you have no money, you're not retiring. So retirement is not an age. It's not an age. Pensions are gone for most folks. So you've got to create your own ability to retire now. And so if you know that, okay, look, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I could be a millionaire if I just follow these 3 simple steps.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do it? Right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that story and example. Thank you for sharing that. It's just I think having real life stories is so powerful for us to like grab onto and see ourselves in it. So amazing. Like right there, 10, 15 years. Most of us have plenty of that ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is kind of coming up for me in hearing, because it's like, okay, we're kind of at this where it's like, we can do it. You guys can do it. If you just, start now. And I'm curious what comes up for you. Obviously, when somebody comes to you, they've pretty much already made that decision or they're close to that, even if they don't say yes immediately to work with you, but then they're that much closer. I'm curious if you think, is there something that would help people to feel like, okay, to say yes, now I want to do this time. And I think what I'm thinking of as an example of this is like, when I set a big goal for myself, whether it's one of the ultra marathon races or like right now, my goal has been to gain 10 pounds of muscle. I did that. I got very close to that in 12 weeks. Now I'm going to gain another 10 pounds of muscle over the next 12 weeks. I know. I'm stoked.
Congrats. Holy mackerel. That's amazing.
Yeah, because I know what to do to make it work. And it's exciting for me. It was exciting for me to say yes, because my end goal is like, I want to double the size of my ass and like be like that next level ripped. So like, that's my vision. And because I have that big vision, I am so compelled to show up at the gym and to get the trainer and to eat the extra food I need to eat and focus on like all of these things, right? Because I'm just like, I'm so fucking compelled. Like, and when I haven't had that, I'm maintaining, I'm normal, I'm good, whatever. So like, is there anything that when you think of like, what would help people to have their compelling, where they're compelled enough to say yes to finally do something about their money?
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of answered it right there, is having a vision. And sadly, a lot of folks don't have a vision for their own lives, right? When I ask folks, okay, so what do you want to do in the next 10 years? Where do you want to be? There's often a lot of silence, a lot of confusion. A lot of folks haven't given that much thought, unfortunately. And I think if anybody's in the personal development space, self-help space, that, they tend to be the ones who are a little bit more in tune with what they want out of their lives, right?
Yes.
So those folks are a little bit more free to describe what they're looking for. I think you have to have a vision for yourself and for your family. And so I knew early on that I didn't want to work until I was 65. I was like, that 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 was not going to be it for me. And I liked what I did, but I was like, I'm not doing this for until I'm 65. Like, that sounds crazy to me. So I knew there had to be a way to get out of that. But of
Mm.
course, you need money. Like, you can't just, I mean, I guess you could, but not, that wasn't congruent with the lifestyle I wanted to live. I still want to shop. I like going on vacations. I like restaurants. I like hanging out in Manhattan and, doing all the fancy things. So I had to create a way to have money as well if I wanted to stop working in corporate forever.
Mm.
And so having that vision, but it wasn't just to stop working, it was also to have vacations and go on vacations with my family, with my kids. I wanted to make sure that they had an understanding of like travel. I didn't travel as much as a child and outside of North America, really. And so I wanted them to travel. I had ideas of like when my son graduated from high school, he loves animals. He wants to work, with wild animals in Africa. We went to South Africa and we did a whole big trip and it cost us a fortune. But I wanted that from the time he was born. Like, I wanted to do big things like that with them.
Mm.
And so I had a vision. I knew what I wanted. And so I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to make this happen? Because a lot of the things that we want, not all the things that are most important to us, but a lot of the things that we want cost money, right?
Yeah.
So memories are free, but sometimes those really great memories cost money. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. That
Well,
great memory in South Africa, that trip, cost a lot of money,
yeah.
right? We could have had an equally amazing, we've had amazing trips to the Bronx Zoo. Those were like much cheaper, obviously, but hey, the ones that cost money are great too. So you just have to have that vision for yourself. And I think people, once they have that vision, then they are kind of paralyzed by, well, what do I do next?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
What do I do next? I've always been making money. So what do I do to make this work for me? Now it's not working. I just don't know what the next steps are. And that's where I come in, where I'm like, okay, we are going to simplify this process. And then guess what? It's repeatable for the rest of your life. Like, after we part, you never have to come back. You keep doing the same things over and over and over again. And that's why it works for my 20-year-old clients, 30, 40, 50, 60, and even my 70-year-old clients. It works across the board. It's just that at different life stages, you may have to tweak it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So if you have young kids, it's a little bit different than you're an empty nester, right? So things are slightly different, but the fundamentals are the same.
Ooh, okay. So I heard first, and now I'm like, this is great. Now I want to go into your story for real, like to because you did share your, because that seems like the start essentially of your story of like when you became Shannon, who now helps people with their finances and their money, because you decided, you had your moment of clarity where you're like, I ain't doing it like this way anymore, and I want more out of life. And then you had this full vision in all these different ways that was so compelling to you that you did something about it. And so I love like just you sharing your vision even too, because that's it. That was it. When you were like, I'm not doing this till 65. Hold on a second. And then we'll hear your story of like how you found the way to that. And then I just even want to share too, where I was like, when it's like, okay, because that was the answer. Okay, great. How do you get started? If you're like, kind of all over, okay, find that vision for yourself. What is that? And then you're like, well, what's the next step? Hire Shannon or a coach, whatever area of life it is. Literally what I did too, when I was ready to not play, like I tried some like building muscle, like the first 10 months of last year. I wasn't fully committed with I was still running. I still had like some of that goals. And then come the fall, I was like, and I was keeping my eye out for who my coach, my trainer was going to be. And I finally found her. And literally once I did, I was like, great, I'm ready to start, and went invested my money to create the vision that I wanted. I'm a big fan of that. I mean, I think y'all know, like you talk to Shannon, you talk to me. It's like, if you have a vision or a goal, put your money down. Like if you haven't been, and this is what I always say, and it's like a rule for myself, is like, if I try it myself and I try to do the workouts, or I try this new way or that, and I can't figure it out, that's the line in the sand for me where I say, who the fuck am I going to hire? Because I'm not willing to wait anymore for this. So that, I think too, I will share that with people. I'm like, you got to know when you draw your line. And that's when you get a coach or somebody to help you, and it will happen.
100%. That's the speed and ease again. There it is again, right? That's the
Exactly.
speed and ease again. It makes all the difference. And you're making an investment in yourself. If you're not willing to invest in yourself, then you're not willing to progress. You're not willing to grow. Right. And so,
Yeah.
and listen, an investment could start with a book. It could start with watching YouTube videos. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that you're paying. But I do
Yeah.
believe that there's an element to pay to play, right? When we
Yeah.
put money down, we get really serious really quickly. Right? So that's part of it, right? That's a big part of it.
1,000%. And it's just, I don't even know. I wish you could like tangibly put that into like something, because it's like, yes, when you pay attention, you will play, but also the accountability and support you get with like literally having you and your eyes and your support there, whatever your programs look like, and we'll hear about at the end. And even in mine, it's like, there is just something when you can actually have another fucking human who is like, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, and I'm here for you. I got your back. Whatever is coming up, because life will fucking come up. And if you don't have that, I just feel like you just fall back into your old ways. And then well, here we go again. It's that start stop cycle, versus when you not just pay, but then you literally have someone accountability and support like every single week.
Huge.
You
Huge.
show up.
Huge. That's accountability. You
Yeah.
show up and support. When things get a little hairy, and they will, when you're confused and you don't know what to do, they'll be there. Like that is priceless, really. So the investment that you're making is really, yes, for the length and the duration of the program, but it extends until like throughout the rest of your life. Because this person has what you want. They've done what you want to do. Why wouldn't you invest with them? That's I've done that all the time. I know you do it all the time. That is the key. So yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Okay, so my story.
Give it. Yes. Tell us.
Tell
And tell us, like, give us, like, before even, like, diving into, like, how you literally got started from this vision, like, give us just that little background, too. Just a little context of, like, what did life look like before you said yes to creating the wealth and doing what you do now?
Sure. So I'm going to speed through the very beginning. I was born and raised in Toronto, so in Canada. My parents were immigrants from Barbados. So my parents grew up poor, immigrated to Canada. And so if you're ever raised by parents, I'm not saying for all, but parents who are poor, they emigrated because they wanted a better life. So the idea was they were never going to be poor again. And so, but they kept in their mind always that they could potentially lose that money. And so if they felt that they were ever going to be poor again, well, that meant that they had to act as though they weren't even comfortable. Right? Because you can never get too comfy and rest on your laurels, because you could slip back into poverty. And that wasn't going to happen. So it was a really confusing environment, because I always had shelter and the lights never went off. I always had food. They paid for my education, my undergrad. Like they were able to do those things, but there was never money for anything else. Nothing fun, nothing luxurious, nothing, outside of the realm of like paying the bills and education. That was it. So growing up like that, it was like, geez, like, I mean, there was no car for me, like none of that stuff, like nothing above and beyond. Right. So that growing up in that, it was like, okay, well, money was always tight. It was always contentious. If I needed something outside of those education, or pretty much education, then it was like, they didn't have it. Great. Fast forward to going to graduate school, moving to the United States, getting my graduate degree, getting a job in corporate. Well, now I was suddenly making my own money. I had my own independence. I could, start spending my money. And I did. I liked a lot of things that I've always liked, but I could actually get them. So, and then I discovered credit cards, which my parents weren't fans of. right? Because
Mhm.
they somehow knew that could get you in trouble. But, marketing really picked up. It picked up long ago. It picked up, back in like the Mad Men days. But it's been ramping up even more so over the years. So marketing was really picking up at that point, and there were places to go and things to do, and people to see. And I was doing all of those things. So of
Mhm.
course, with that, I was spending beyond what I was making. So I got into a lot of debt,
Mhm.
and that I thought was normal. Like everybody had credit card debt, everybody had debt. I got married, I bought a house, I had a car. We had cars, we had two kids, they were in daycare. Like it was getting ugly. Like the debt was mounting because daycare is expensive, so you're paying that. So you still need to buy clothes, you still need to do this, you still want to go out, you still want to all of the things. And so
Mhm.
as that continued to climb, it was starting to get to the pressure point. And the
Mhm.
pressure point wasn't like there wasn't a job loss or anything like that, but you knew you were like just flying way too close to the sun. And
Mhm.
so I came up with a lot of strategies on how to do this. Now, I didn't know about Dave Ramsey, so I never did that complete stop investing in the stock market or anything like that and not doing your 401k. I had read early on that I should be investing, and for some reason I started with my $25 a month. I don't know what told me to do that. I didn't even know what I was investing in. It's crazy now when I think about it. But I was like, no, you got to put in $25 a month. Like, that's the minimum that the brokerage account allowed me to put in. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. The joke about that, and I'll come back to it, is I readjusted those investments in that company, but I kept doing the $25 a month. That's over six figures, that one account, because it's time in the market. It's not timing the market, folks. So $25, I want to say, still makes a difference. Now, that's not my only account, but I just think that one was really interesting because it really showed me about compound interest. Anyway, so back to all of this debt, I decided, okay, we've got to pay off this debt. How are we going to go about doing it? And of course, I would start off with these like totally, extreme approaches. Like, we're never eating out. We're not buying any more clothes. We're not buying anything. We're not doing anything. Just stay in the house. All your vacations are going to be in the backyard. This is how we're going to live until we pay it off. Yeah, that lasted about maybe 2 months at best. And everybody was miserable. And that didn't work. And I would try that over and over and over again like an idiot. And it's like, hello, it's not working. You have to do something else. So then I was like, okay, what can we realistically pay off? What can we realistically do? Let's make a realistic budget that allows us to have a little bit of flexibility, but also with the timeline of what we can tolerate for paying off the debt. And it wasn't 6 months, it wasn't a year. It took about 5 years to pay it off. But
Mhm.
within those 5 years, we were able to increase our investments. We were able to still go on vacations. Like my kids still think you go on vacation for spring break every year, even though I'm like, good luck you doing that. But that's, we were able to do those things and we were able to not add to the debt because
Mhm.
now I had a budget that made sense, right? So
Mhm.
we could live within these means, invest, and pay off the debt.
Yeah.
Once the debt was paid off, then a whole new world opened up because now you're not funneling money to things that you had in the past. It enabled us to create those other sources of income. So I love real estate. So I started investing in real estate. I was already investing in the stock market, increased those investments, but I also invested in real estate. I saved for my kids' college funds, right? I was saving for retirement. I was saving for them to go to college. I was investing in real estate. Now because the debt was gone, I had already strengthened that investing muscle, but now I could kind of branch out and try some other things because I wasn't burdened by that debt. So
Mhm.
I want to point out that this took time.
Mm.
This happened in a stepwise fashion. When my kids were in daycare, I wasn't investing, 25% of my income into retirement. I wasn't buying real estate properties. What are you, nuts? I had to pay for daycare. It cost a lot of money. I didn't have that much cash to do all of these things. So at that stage of my life, I couldn't do all of the things. However,
Mhm. Mhm.
getting started at that small scale with even the
Mhm.
$25 built the muscle. I realized at that point I was going to become a millionaire because I was investing. Even
Mm.
$25, like that, the Lulu, if you want to call it, but it's true. I was investing and I knew that this money could grow. And so I was doing things in a stepwise fashion. And the debt came off, the investments went up, the increase in 401ks and 529s for college, that increased. This took years, right? And it wasn't until I realized one year I was looking at the investment accounts and I saw that my investment account made more money than I did going to work. And I was
Mm.
like, wait a minute. So I'm
Mm.
getting up every day, putting on my scarf and my gloves and getting in the car and warming it up and going to work and having to deal with the pressures of that. And this thing that's been growing in the background for all of these years is making more money than my salary. What the hell? And that's when, I don't know, even though I've been doing it for years, the light bulb went off and I was like, this is the deal that a lot of folks don't realize. This is the message that needs to get out to people, because you're taking the money that you're making, and if you can invest it and do it in a way that it grows and just ride it out, you will inevitably make money for yourself without doing anything else, like just that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know growing up in the middle class, there's this belief that, okay, you want more money, you got to work harder. You want more money, you got to work harder. But I want people to ask themselves, okay, you've been working for all these years. You've made more money over the years. Why aren't you making any more progress? Right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
getting the raises, the promotions, the bonuses. You've got to, the merit increases, whatever the case may be, the cost of living increases. You are not moving the needle. Like nothing's happening.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's
So good.
because working harder isn't the answer.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it, it just isn't.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I want to go from there with your story because you were like, and just even that is like that light bulb moment that you had where it was like, even anybody like taking just a step back and thinking like, have you had a light bulb moment? Maybe you suppressed it and you didn't honor
Mm,
it because you were working on something, or you have that something, maybe that's additional source of creating income. But just that, I heard that, I felt that from you when you said that, like when you saw that moment was like, I could almost like I feel like I'm getting emotional again. Like I could almost like viscerally like feel like you were like, what? Like
what?
day and night life changed after that point when you saw that and you realized that. So just for anybody, it's like I just feel like listen for the light bulb to go off for you, for whether that's money, that's your purpose in life, that's your health. Listen for the light bulb, like pay attention to that. And then you also said, I just feel like everyone take this thought that Shannon just gave us, which is, I am going to be a millionaire. Like, what if, I don't care what the circumstances are right now, all of the hustling and the working hard and the grinding and this and the, like, what if that just period, you started it, somebody else just literally did what you did, started investing $25 right now, this month, and also put on the hat of, I am going to be a millionaire, instead of the emotional behavioral thoughts and things that we don't work on or somebody is ignoring. And instead you just started to say to yourself, like every day, you like I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire. Like I feel like when you said that, that hit to me where I was like, okay, yes, like you said, tangible things we're doing, and you're telling, you're investing and putting down the debt, but it all came like or amplified because you said you're going to be a millionaire. You didn't just say, I want to invest some. I want to pay off my debt, like, and hopefully we can go on a bigger vacation next year. That was not the vibe I was getting or what you're saying. You said, I'm going to be a fucking millionaire. I had my little extra flair there. But like that was the vibe. You were like, boss bitch, like this is what I'm doing for me and my family. I'm going to be a millionaire. Not, I mean, hopefully I can pay off some debt and make some money and retire one day. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Like, no, like,
That's not the energy you need to approach this with. And
yeah,
I don't want you to create more wealth or build wealth so you can pay off debt. Like, sure, that's a byproduct, but is that motivational? I don't think so. I want you to figure out what it is that you want to do with your life. And I think people are afraid to say it out loud. They're afraid to even speak it into existence because, it depends on who you're sharing this with. I mean, you can share it with me because there's nothing that you can say. I'm partially delusional, so that's fine. There's nothing you could share with me that I'm going to say, oh, no, that's not going to happen. The only way it's not going to happen is if you don't get started.
yeah, yeah. And to that too, that was like also a takeaway I wrote down. There was like, you started small, very clearly, and you built the muscle. And like for everybody, it's like we all know this, but like seriously, truly, would you hear it this time? Like start small. Like you said, I think nowadays you could do $5. Like, like something to start small and build that muscle.
A
Yeah.
dollar.
A dollar. Oh, okay. Okay, let's go from there. Let's go from there. So you have this light bulb moment and you're
Yeah,
like, this people
this
need
is
to know.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I also saw is I was in the pharmaceutical industry and a lot of folks around me were making, good money, like six-figure salaries.
So
They were
sorry.
doing, it's okay. They were doing well for themselves and they were struggling financially. And we would get, our raises and our bonuses and, you know what I mean? And over the years, and of course I didn't know the nitty gritties of everybody's story, but I knew that people were struggling. And I was like, what the hell? These folks are making good money compared to a lot of folks in the rest of the country. And then I knew other people who weren't making even a fraction of what they were making, but they were financially independent. So I was like, what's happening? And what I
Mm.
realized is that there's some folks who understand how money works, and it's not necessarily how much you make. And then there's some people who just didn't understand how money worked. And as a result, they could keep making more and more and more money. And they would never jump off that treadmill. And I would see those folks going to retire at 65 and they left the industry, but they went to get another job, not because they wanted to, not because they wanted to keep their minds, sharp and to do something that they loved. It's because they had to. They didn't have anything saved. They didn't have anything ready for them when they stopped working. And that to me was like, no, 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 no. I do not and didn't want to be at a point when I reached that age to say, oh my gosh, I have to be a Walmart greeter. That is not what I wanted to do. And I want a lot of people to avoid that regret and avoid having to put that burden on themselves and not to put that burden on their children.
Yeah.
Right. And I know I speak to a lot of folks who know that their parents don't have any money, that they know that their parents don't have money saved, even though they could have saved over the years. And these kids are worried. Now, when I say kids, they're adult children who have their own children now. Right.
Yeah.
And they're worried that they're like, wait, hold on a minute. How can I take care of my family and set my family up and have to support my parents, right? And it's a very big concern for them. And I think what's important is that we all have to realize that this is a journey. There's stuff that you need to do and that you can learn along the way. I am still learning. Every day I'm fascinated by what? You mean I can do this and save this and then make this and you know what I mean? Like there are a lot of secrets that the rich know that they don't share. And I'm here to be the big whistleblower, which I share with all of my clients all the time. And everybody I know, I'm like, did you know that if you do this, that's less than if you do that? Nobody knows. Like, I'm always surprised at how it is designed for the middle class to just comfortably or uncomfortably stay in the middle.
Yeah.
And very few people can jump the fence to that independently wealthy stage where they are comfortable and no longer have to worry about money. So I just want people to realize that, okay, you may be starting at the very beginning, whatever your beginning is. This is a lifelong journey, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You're going to get the comfort level to that comfort level before you get to the end of this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love that too, because it's like same with the health and fitness. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
not doing a race and then being like, chip chop, well, I shall just sit back on my couch now. It's like, no, we're gonna like run and for casual and leisure, but like I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna
Right.
stop ever getting healthy overall and working out. And it's the same with your money. And I will say this is like, I made a note of this a couple times, and like kind of on this is like how to make it a journey. A part of like what I like to share in that is like to have it be fun. And like and I feel like the same for money, because yeah, money, all the things can have this like heavy weight if you don't know and it hasn't been working. So like I'm curious, are there some things that you infuse working with your clients, or that you think like teaches like how can we make this concept of money and investing and managing and budgeting, all these things, like how could it be more fun?
Yeah. So one of the things, I am not about sacrifice and deprivation, because I knew that that didn't work for me. If that's what you want to do, great. That's fine. I'm probably not the one for you, because I'm going to be like, so what do you like to do? And I like to build those things into your budget, right?
Mm,
I want you to do the things you like to do guilt free. I don't want you to feel like you can't go on a vacation or you can't go shopping or whatever it is. And if you do those things, then you're going to beat yourself up about it. No, here's the money allotted to those things. These things are important to you. We're going to either save up for them, or we just put it aside every month for those things. And that's it. And then we go on about our business. Once you release that guilt and shame, you'd be amazed at how much more enjoyable those things are. Or sometimes you don't care to do them as much because you're not having this internal rebellious event within your own self, right? So I make sure that there's an understanding of what they like to do, and we embed that into that budgeting framework, right? And that's why I don't encourage them to like take every cent they have and throw it at their debt. Who Nobody likes to pay off their debt, like, so that's not what we do. The other thing that I like to do is, for some of my clients who claim that they're overspenders, and a lot of them say they are, but they really aren't, and I can get into that, but I like to let them have money sitting in their account.
mm,
We're not going to use it to pay debt. We're not going to use it to pay off anything or to save for anything. It's just going to sit there because I want them to feel comfortable having money.
yeah. Mm, I love that.
Right?
I
I
love
want you to feel comfortable seeing what it's like to have it in your checking account or savings account or your brokerage account, whatever. I want you to feel comfortable saying, ooh, I have $5,000, $20,000, $100,000, and just sitting there and looking at it, right?
yeah.
Like, I think that's a really fun thing for them to do. Like, initially, some of them get a little panicky, and that's fine. And that's where that whole behavioral piece comes in. But I want them to be comfortable being that person with money.
Mm, love it.
And then the other thing is just talking about it, because a lot of folks may want to cross over into this financial independent stage. They may want to talk about um, what it means to do things with their money, how to make their money grow, how to build wealth. But they may be in an environment with other people who either are disinterested or who think that, rich people are greedy or evil, or, you know what I mean? Or don't, so they don't have that space to just talk about these things, to ask questions when they hear things that they don't understand. I like to take time to do that as well. Just ask me
Mm,
whatever you want to ask me. And if you're my client, I'm like, woohoo! I just like, I'll let you know what's going on. I'll tell you what I got in here, what I got over here, what I'm doing here. Like, I will just reveal it all, because why not? I mean, I didn't have a lot of folks around me who either knew about this, like my parents didn't know about investing. So I didn't learn it from them, right? And then I still have friends who could give a shit. They don't care. So I had to find people to have these conversations with. And so once you find folks who are open to sharing, and a lot of what I've noticed when I've been in groups with like seriously ultra wealthy people, they talk about money all the time amongst themselves. It's only folks in the middle class that don't talk about money. Rich people talk about money all the time. And I don't mean like how to make more, but how to preserve their wealth, how to raise kids that aren't spoiled brats, how to, donate their wealth, how to be philanthropic. They talk about money incessantly. It is only
Mhm.
folks in the middle class who are like, because there's just this shame around it. And this belief that if I reveal that I have or I don't have, I'm going to be judged. So
Mm. I love all three of those. Thank you for all three of those. I really am like that last one too. I mean, this just also feels like a year of connection in general,
yeah.
like and going deeper. Those are some of my words, is like intentional and deep for this year, and real and unleashed, of course. Um, but like that that depth there and that community and that support, and you're right, it's kind of just like coaching and like therapy. It's like when we speak something out loud, like we release it and we get it out into the world, and it literally is therapy for ourselves, like when we just use our voice. And then now I'm like going back to that, like us as women using our voice. Now we're talking about money out loud, and and the like where this conversation came from, and it's actually a fun conversation. It's not like a guilt or oh my god, what did you like, get on Amazon, or you got that bag or whatever, you got this
Mhm.
box. Yeah,
Oh,
like we're like, oh girl, when did you get to it? Like it's like
exactly.
conversations where we can feel at ease, we can feel celebrated. And I really love that. And because I'm even thinking now, as when I have, again, a race, or like recently, I think it was just literally last Friday when I was 0.7 pounds away from hitting 10 pounds gain. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see my girl at the gym, because I'm going to tell her I like where I'm at, and she's going to fucking be so excited for me. I told my spin class that morning, like I was like sharing it with everyone because I was so excited, and I have a community around me that embraces that and that celebrates it, and I can have that space to share instead of just keeping it to myself, or not sharing it, or not celebrating it. And there's such power to that. So I really love that for everyone. Is like, I'm even curious, do you have like thoughts of like how do we start to find these communities? I mean, what we can Google stuff, but yeah, anything there.
That's so interesting because there are a lot of communities where it's like, oh, I have debt, how to pay it off. They're like very doom and gloomy. It's Our society doesn't love to celebrate people building wealth, right? Like we're obsessed with the uber wealthy, right? And then we love to hate them. We're also obsessed with the uber poor. We're like, oh, you're lazy, you need to do something. Anything in between, we get a little prickly. And so when it comes to building wealth, there's some communities where I see a little, folks who talk about becoming financially independent, but you got to be careful. There's a lot of hate that comes with that, right? And when it's women, forget it. A lot of those communities are dominated by men, but when it's women, there's always a weird undertone. I shouldn't say always, but tends to be a weird undertone about still what you should be spending your money on versus what you shouldn't be spending your money on, and the way in which you invest and things like that. Like it seems a little off to me. I'm still looking for those communities. I recently, well, no, it's been over a year now, but I joined this high net worth community where you have to have a certain net worth to be in, and it doesn't include your primary residence, so that you have to show them all your assets and blah, 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 blah. It's still dominated by men primarily. But there's lots of good conversation in there again about how to build wealth. And most of the folks in there, and what made that attractive to me, is that they're first generation millionaires, right? So these obviously aren't people who were born with trust funds and got inheritances. These are folks who either had a W-2 job and created their wealth, or they had a business, sold it, and then made a ton of money, right? They started a small group for women only, which is great. I joined that. And that's a safe space. But if you open it up sometimes to the greater community, like just say a Facebook group or something like that, it gets a little dicey. People tend to be a little offended because money's funky, right? In our society, it's really weird. People get a little offended when they hear about people who want to create more wealth, right?
Yeah.
So it's not safe for folks to say, well, I want to create more money. I want to, and they're like, don't you have enough? And you know what I mean? You already make six figures or whatever, right? So that's why it's a little bit more difficult to find these groups. If I find something, I try to share it. I vet it. I see what's in there. I tell my clients to join it, but they're either people who are on their way to making that money, which they tend to get the vitriol, or you already have to have that money. And I'm hoping that I can find something in between, right? That I would have liked to have seen years ago, where you're not going to be attacked because you want to create wealth. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, I'm like, okay, ladies, well, start one wherever you're at. Okay. I'm like, I've got some women in our community here I'm thinking of where it's like, okay, how can we start this? Maybe this is the rise of us all who anybody listening to this podcast, I feel like would be a part of that group. Your listeners like are going to be people who are like, no, we want to. So, all right, we can create something like that. I know we're kind of getting close on time. Do you have like 5 more minutes, Shannon?
I did.
Fab. Okay. Because I definitely want to share everything to be able to find and work with you what that looks like. I think there was like one thing I really wanted to ask from when you were sharing about like the framework, because I feel like the narrative out there around money is more so, like you said, it's mostly about debt, debt, debt. Let's get out of debt. Let's get out of debt. This whole Dave Ramsey type, other people, like there's so much talk on like, how do we get out of debt? And I find even when I listen to like all the different money podcasts or like books, and then it's even talking about investing potentially, but there's not as much about creating the additional income or creating, like you were talking about, not just having one source, but at least two sources, if not more. Like you're saying, two at a minimum. And I find there's just not a lot of like talk or shows like dedicated to how do we make more money so we get out of that like middle class. Like, so tell me, I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts to share with like, how can we make more money? Like, what are the ways that you work with your clients or you've seen that really helps that?
Yeah. So I agree that figuring out how to make more money is the key, right? And you've got to be comfortable saying, I want to make more money. A
Mm,
lot of people aren't comfortable saying that out loud. I like money. I'm always looking at ways to make more money. So I've
mm,
always had, like, once I figured out, oh, wait a minute, if I make more money, there's some other ways I could live my life here. That is key. So I did in many ways. I mean, and I'll just share some of the things I did: vending machines, real estate, obviously the stock market. I'm now doing, well, a few years back, I started doing private equity because you have to have a certain amount of money to even do private equity. So private equity, which is a little riskier, but that's why I say this is a journey, right? Like you can start small. I've been an angel investor. I've invested in, a lot of little businesses. Um, so I think you got to start with the foundation, and that's why there's a journey. I wouldn't tell somebody right away to go into private equity. I'm like, no, 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 no. Make sure you have a nice foundation of your own money so you don't have to use it when you're investing. And this is the thing with this being a journey. I don't touch my own capital to invest. Right? So the losses aren't going to hit me the same way as if you take your own $25,000 and start investing. That's going to hurt a lot more if that's the only money you have, or you're using your cash. I may use my stock. You know what I mean? So there are different ways to go about doing this. So, and that's a little bit more further down the line, but that's why it's so important to set up the different ways of creating more money. Some of us have like my coaching business is another form of income, right? And so that's even a form of income in and of itself. And I allocate that, the money that I make in coaching, for something, right? I may allocate real estate money for something else, to create more money in real estate, or to invest in my kids' college fund. You know what I mean? I may utilize the money for my vending machines, help funded my kids' IRAs. That was where their business is. Yeah, I started them, but they were in their names. So you see how that also builds generational wealth. So there's a lot of things that you can do out there, but I don't think people give themselves the opportunity to think about it, mainly because in the middle class, creating more money means working harder, and it doesn't. That is the biggest misconception that is in the middle class, that rich people know. I don't need to work harder to make more money. I just need
Yeah.
to optimize the money I'm already making. And then that creates more money for me in another entity. And that's what I didn't know in the middle class. I'm still in the middle class, but I didn't know growing up in the middle class. Middle class folks don't realize that that is the biggest key, that you don't have to just work harder, get more education, because they're not making any progress. So I think
Yeah.
that is really, really important. The thing about the budgeting framework for me is most folks have no awareness about what their money's doing and where it's going. So people will tell me, well, I don't really buy a lot of designer bags, and we don't live a really big life. But once we look at the budget, once we actually create one, and not a list of your bills, because that's not a budget, that's just a
Yeah.
list of people you're paying. When we look at where the money is slipping through all the cracks, we suddenly
Yeah.
realize there's a lot of money going out here, and that's fine. But are you comfortable with where it's going? Most
Yeah.
people don't know where it's going. And then they're like, oh, I don't want my money to go in those places. It's like, well, then let's not send it over there. Let's
Yeah.
redirect it to other things that are more important to you. So when I create my budgeting framework, which I call wins, we start with your wants. What are your wants? And that's part of the vision, right? What do you want out of life? Let's
Yeah.
put our money in that area first. Most
Mm.
people are going to pay their bills, right?
Yeah.
They are going to do that. They're going to spend their money. So the wins, it's like wants, investments, your needs, which are all your bills and stuff like that, and savings. And so savings are those short-term things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something's coming up, you're going to need money for it. We got the emergency fund, things that are coming up anytime now. That's our savings. Our needs are all our bills. Our investments, like I said, we could start with $1, but you get
Mm-hmm.
that muscle going. And once you start investing, believe me, you will always continue. It's always hardest to start, but anybody who starts will start there, and then they'll start, going off to those other streams of income, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, your wants. If you have your wants on, and that's your primary focus, you're not making sacrifices, because that is exactly where you want your money to go. Anything else that's not in that is superfluous. You don't care about it. You don't want it. It's not a sacrifice. If somebody
Yeah.
came up to me right now, even though I love the violin, I will not play the violin. I'm not going to take lessons, maybe years from now. And they said, I have a violin here for $500. It's top of the line. It usually goes for $25,000. Will you buy it? And I'm like, no, I don't want a violin, right? And it doesn't matter if it's $500. That's not in the realm of my wants. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
making a sacrifice. I'm not depriving myself of the violin or anything. I'm making sure that my focus is on my wants. So I
Yeah.
think that is really the key, getting that budgeting framework. When you know what you want, then we can easily start with our simplified set it and forget it investments. And then we get right into, and like I said, we can do these all simultaneously. We get right into, how can you create more money? And
Yeah.
most people are sitting on ideas, sitting on things already that they don't even realize, and utilizing them, sitting on money that it's like, why are we not tapping into this? I had a
Yeah.
70-year-old client. She started an Airbnb business. Within 6 months, she paid off all her debt with that money. Sitting on it, sitting on money, sitting on money. Like, when are we using this? And now she started yet another business, a charcuterie business. Crazy. They're not even close. But the point is, it's like, hey, and she's had debt her entire life.
Mm. Mm. Oh my gosh. 70, you said? 70-year-old?
She was 72.
Fabulous. I'm like, okay, I love that you shared that too, because like, y'all, I mean, 72. I think most of us listening to this podcast have many years to get there.
Yes.
Um, and even if you are 72 or 74, like this woman is an example of doing it. And I love that you said that too. Okay, first of all, okay, I love the like baseline because it's like, okay, yes, let's talk about creating more income, but let's first get the budget, the fun budget, like the budget for you is what I really heard. Like not what we should do and the shame and like all that when we don't look at it. It's like, no, let's legitimately include the stuff you love, the stuff you need, the investing, the saving, like it all can be there. And it's beautiful. It's just like, it makes me think of like a workout plan. Like it's very,
Mm-hmm.
like, and again, if like a year ago, my goals did not have lifting this much. I'm lifting 4 times a week for over an hour now. I was lifting like twice a week for 30 minutes for years because that was my goal was ultra marathons.
Mm-hmm.
Shifted and changed. So my training, my plan has changed. Just like for your clients, wherever you're at, there's going to be a very specific to you what that budget looks like. And it's includes the fun stuff. It includes, so we don't have to sacrifice. And that does feel, I'm glad you said that because it's like if we don't have that, and I mean, I've experienced this too, for sure. Like when there's like, then there's like the gaps, and then, oh, all of a sudden you go to Target and you're like $250 later, and you're like, oh, the kids wanted this, or, you know, oh, there was the $8 granola bars or whatever. And it's like, so it's like, we know if we have this and we're really putting that there intentionally, one, we're not letting any leaks or gaps is what came to me. Like there's not like gaps where it's like, I don't have any money ever. It's like, well, hold on a second. You will if we have this plan. Even if it's $25 to invest and that's all you have extra, at least there's something there and we know it. And that can start working for you. And then I love what you said about creating like all the different ways of like creating the additional income. I think instead of like all these different examples, I mean, yes, there's a business, like you're coaching, there's investing in these different ways. But just that idea, I think of we all are sitting on our own ideas. Like right now, quite literally, of what we could do to make more money. And it's like probably like hiding in plain sight, some of these things. Or maybe like people have had these ideas and they're just not acting on them. They're like, oh man, like or the thing that came up too was like, I don't have the time. Cause like I'm guilty sometimes of this, like, you know, mom working of like, well, how would I have time to get a real estate property and do that, or to do an Airbnb, or to walk the dogs as a side business or whatever? I don't know. Touch on that one real quick. If you like, what do you say when someone's like, well, I don't know, Shannon, I don't have the time for these additional revenue things?
Well, there are two things, right? So we make time for the things that we care about, right? So we all have 24 hours, blah, blah, blah. But no, that's not true because sometimes you have 24 hours, I have 24 hours, but I have the money to outsource a lot of stuff. So I have more than 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like I actually can optimize those 24 hours because now I can outsource a lot of things, right? And so I don't buy into that we just all have 24 hours. I think that we do make time for the things that are most important to us. That is true, right?
Yeah.
And before I get into the time objection, I do want to talk about what you said about the folks who are all sitting on things. I do believe this. I have a client who she's helping her elderly parents and she's having difficulty finding people who can help with this. And so she's creating a business. And she said, you know, I was thinking about doing a business doing this. And I was like, that's fantastic. I know 4 other of my clients in different states who all do this. I can connect you. And this is the amount, this is what it looks like. And I mean, that's one of the great things that I've also found out, that because I've encouraged so many people to start things and some people come in with their own businesses as well, I have this huge network of people all over the place where I'm like, you want to do that? I got someone you can talk to. You want to do it? I've done it. You want to do it? Like, this is the thing. So that's why when I'm talking to them, I can hear the idea. They're afraid to say it. Let's talk about it. It is not going to take as long as you think, but again, you have to get started. Now, the
Mm,
time. A lot of these things don't take as much time as people think, but you know, like anything else, when you have an idea, it just seems really overwhelming, like you just don't know how to begin. So it seems as though it's going to take a lot of time. But when we're working together and it's like, hey, why don't you do this week? Before they know it, they've already laid the groundwork, right?
mm,
And now they're
mm.
ready to like get started. They don't even realize that I'm doing my little like, you know, Jedi mind tricks on them. And getting them set up to do what they think is so overwhelming. And it's really like, how do you need an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So the time is there. We're not in a rush though. I like
Yeah.
if you decide that you want to start a business, no one says you have to start it next week. It may not come to fruition for a year, but guess what we're doing in the interim? You're over here, you've managed your money, you know what's going on, you started investing, that money's already growing. You're optimizing on the money that you already have. Like, so you are doing things along the way. That's why I say I don't want you to just do one thing. Like the debt's coming down. All of these things are working in tandem. So there's no
Yeah.
rush. This is a journey. It is a journey. And it just, you know, as long as you're doing a little bit at a time, the problem is folks are doing nothing. Heads are down and they're frozen, right? And so what I want you to do is to get started. Before you
Mm.
know it, you know, I'm surprised we're already in 2025. And I'm like, what the hell? And like, like last year, I was like, wait a second. But when I go back and think about all of the things that I did, I was like, oh, yeah, because I took those incremental steps along the way.
Mm. Oh my gosh, Shannon, so many like mic drop moments. This just really feels like so juicy and like flowy, like everything that you shared. And like it just when I say it just like makes sense. Like, and what from even that when we're like the time thing, I'm like laughing because it's like it's the mindset. It's the mindset. And this is a piece that when you get coaching, when you have someone like Shannon to have your back in that kind of event sport that can hear what you don't even fucking know is there. And that's the job of a coach. Like I feel like our number one job is to listen.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, interesting. We're in the back here, like, okay. And because we can hear, you can hear things. And so it's like that right there was like, yeah, there is time, but I think what happens is everybody goes like, it's just too overwhelmed. It's just gonna, and it just feels and seems that way. But like you just said, literally, like, especially if you had a coach or somebody, it could be like, well, I was working with a woman this next week. I'm like, okay, well, figure out what do you want to call your business? Is you going to be an LLC? Is it in the state or the old one you used before?
Mhm.
Those are your choices for this week. Boom. Next. Okay. Now the next call, we do like one little thing here. And literally in like a week, she's probably gotten farther than she's ever even imagined. Like just because of that. So you're right. It is not time. And I'm so glad you said that. So we all just hear that and remind ourselves that it is not time. And then also just with that, we're like, and like, let's just all like take a breath. Like, yo, like we got time, slow down. And because that's the other thing, like when we aren't rushed through, when you said people are just not doing anything, but I think it's both. You're not doing anything, but it's because you're just going to like, oh my God, how am I going to get there? This overwhelmed. I've got to get there now and pay off all this debt now and make all this money now. Listen, my hand is raised. Like, been there, done that, y'all. Like,
Right.
and only when we slow down and realize it's okay, because when you're there, you don't do anything. Versus if you just say, I'm going to start this week with this one thing, and you can just get yourself, if you don't have a coach, you just got to get yourself to say, what's the one thing I can do to start today, this week? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, ah, Shannon, so good. Okay. I'm like, I'm glad we went over because I feel like all of this needed to be said, and shared. So tell everybody, where can they find you, follow you, connect with you, tell them about working with you, what that literally looks like, the different ways. Give us all the goods.
Okay. So I'm on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. at the whole budget. So you can follow me there and all of those places. I recently started my podcast at the end of last year, and it's called From Middle Class to Millions. So you can listen on Apple and Spotify. And right now, I'm working with one on one clients. I work with them for 6 months, and basically, we're moving from middle class to millions. We do the budgeting framework, we get some awareness about your money. You learn to invest. We simplify investing so you can set it and forget it. And then we create two or more other sources of income apart from your primary source of income. And I think it is just really the understanding of how those three things work in tandem all the time throughout your life. But I personalize it to where you are right now. So I know that a lot of people come to me and they're like, I haven't started investing, or I have a lot of debt, or I am investing and I'm losing money. And that one drives me nuts, because I'm like, you don't know what you're doing it all wrong, but we're going to figure out how to do it right so that you're making money. And we're increasing everybody's net worth. Everyone who worked with me last year, their net worth increased by a minimum of 25%. And that is a no-brainer. So we are going to ensure that you increase your net worth. If you don't know what that is, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about what it means to have a net worth. And even if your net worth is negative, we still want it to increase, right? We want to get you to a positive net worth. Okay, so this is what we do when we work together. So I hope everybody got something out of this, because it was very fun to talk to you, Samantha.
Oh, so glad. Yes, I'm lit up over here. I'm like, it's Friday, and now we just talk about money so much. I'm like ready to look at some things, like dive into some more money today. Like, this was so refreshing, Shannon. I feel like the way you shared this and your methods are they just feel light. It feels open. It feels doable. It feels simple. Like, seriously, the way you shared it all is just like, we can all do that. And it just doesn't feel confusing at all. And like, we can do that, like you said, once you get that down, just like rinse and repeat that, Bubba, like all over.
Rinse and repeat. I love it. It's so true. That's the thing. It's so simple. I want so many people to understand. Like, I'm not going to topple over capitalism if, a bunch of people decide, yeah, I want to be a millionaire too, and move from middle class to millions. But if you do decide to like start following these simple steps, it'll completely change your life.
Oh, amazing. Shannon, thank you so much for being on and sharing all of this. I will link all of those things in the show notes, and I can't wait to like hear. Okay, you guys too, you got to reach out to Shannon and tell her what your takeaways were, or to me. And like, let's get this like women, money, millions. Like, this is the year. Let's get it going.
I love it. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome, Shannon.